but approach something as mundane as sound, and try to look at it from a different angle. And that's been fun. I think we got to go back to some of that. We haven't done an episode like that in a while, but we definitely plan to. Because we are sort of that in between, we do interviews, but we also do our own topical shows. And I found that I'm still learning a lot about how to interview. Interviews are not easy to do. And I think you guys will learn as well as you go along that you guys will get better at it. And, you'll know how to feel out a conversation and stuff like that. And the guest has a lot to do with it too. Sometimes, guests can be super intense and you just don't know what to do. Like they stop talking and you're just like, I don't even know what you said for the last 20 minutes,
Yeah. I can never remember his name, but the one who talks, you guys did with Bible Mechanics episode.
Matt Miller.
Matt Miller, yeah.
Matt, that was intense.
I've listened to that interview like 5 times, and every time I'm like, what's he talking about? I'm totally lost.
I know. And that is a huge learning point for me, because number one, I was alone, I think. Like Basil wasn't there, and that was like the first time he wasn't there for an interview. And I was like, oh, great, and I'm talking to this guy who's like super intense. And I mean, I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to ask. I tried to kind of keep it going. But that interview actually was interesting because after it came out, Chris White took it down off of the Revelations Radio Network feed. And he just told me, he's like, it sounds like you were agreeing with everything he was saying. And half the stuff he was talking about can be debunked. And man, when he sent me that email, I just felt terrible. I was like, it's just a horrible interview person. But, I decided to kind of pick myself up, and I was like, look, I got to learn from it. Mm-hmm. And I think we do a better job with interviews now, but we haven't had too much of a controversial or at least a confusing sort of topic, since then. I mean, we've had a couple. But I think, I think listening to other shows really does help. I listen to a lot of Future Quake. I love the way Dr. Future is able to traverse through guests who share some particular views, but don't necessarily share the same worldview. And so I think there's a way to go about doing it and bring out these ideas of Christianity and sort of plant the seeds, if you will, to some of these guests as well. You have the opportunity to sort of show that, hey, the Bible actually does talk about some of these things. Actually, if you listen to the episode about geoengineering,
dude, that was awesome.
That was like our favorite one so far.
Oh, really?
that was a fantastic interview. I'm just saying, and I love where you put in the clip with what was that guy? David Keith, was it? Or Keith?
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was just hilarious. That host slammed him.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that was Steve Colbert, I think.
Yeah, Colbert Report. Yeah,
and he's pretty. He's a big time guy. So I was really happy to see him sort of like, just kind of expose what was going on there. But yeah, I think you guys will learn, and I think I'm still learning how to interview people. It's a challenging thing, but it's fun. You learn a lot. I recommend you listen back to interviews and listen back to these conversations, because you pick up on things. You learn like, oh, I totally didn't remember the guest saying that. Like, it didn't hit me when I was talking to him.
Yeah.
So you learn, but also you can assess like, okay, should I have asked a different question here, or I should have gone about the question different there. So, it is a science in some sense, but it also made me respect a lot of people like Dr. Future, like Derek Gilbert, and even mainstream media. Like, I know mainstream media is like, their views are sort of skewed and whatnot, but their ability to interview people and whatnot, I have a much higher respect for them than I used to. But my respect actually fell for like news anchors, because they just read off a screen.
Oh yeah.
I can't even watch that stuff
even
anymore.
if they get it wrong, they can edit it.
That's true. And we do edit stuff. Like we
do
edit the
too.
show. So we try to just clean it up, because, and I recommend editing, not just because, and I know some shows are like, we keep it raw and we keep it whatever, which is fine. That's if that's what you want to go for. But for my perspective, when a podcast is out there it's out there and it's there for a really long time. So might as well spend the extra effort and time to clean stuff up, to make it, flow. And, when Basil's clearing his throat or there, a lot of times I take out the ums and, not all the time, but Basil will sit there sometimes and go, and I'm like, dude, that's not good radio. I'm going to take that.
Yeah. No, we, at our last interview, for some reason, the guy we interviewed and us, every time we'd all go to speak, we were like, we'd precurse our statements with like that clicking noise and make really slow statements and take really long pauses.
I think I took an hour off our last interview
just from editing that stuff
just from editing little things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it can take a long time. And we do the same thing. I comb through the show, which is fun for me. I mean, that's what I love doing, is putting the sound together. Sometimes I'm inspired to add extra sound effects or extra clips. A lot of those clips don't happen during the show. I actually add that in later. And I wish I can play it during the show sometimes so we can actually react to it instead of just like having it there. But, I think it's important to make it as clean as possible, at least for now. I mean, I think once we start doing it more and more, we'll be less inclined to always edit stuff. But it's fun, man. I love doing it. And, I encourage you guys to keep doing it too, because it's definitely a learning experience. The best way to learn is by teaching, so you get put on the spot a lot. And I just think it's an overall good thing. And now with the capacity to do stuff like that, I mean, we have all the resources at our fingertips. So I encourage you guys to keep going.
Yeah, Dan and I haven't really found many people, again, like-minded. And when we found your show, because of our Leonard interview that we did on his channel, somebody had commented on the interview that we had done before we had even thought about doing this as a podcast. And we got the idea. We had the idea before we got to your show, but when we saw it all put together, we were like, "Man, we have to do this," And I don't know who it was that commented. It was FreeThinkNN, and they mirrored your page on YouTube.
Huh? Oh, interesting. Yeah, I can't keep up with some of that sometimes. There's comments and stuff that happen all the time, and I try to jump in once in a while because I think it's important to interact. But that's cool, man. That's really neat. That's what pushed you guys into doing it.
Yeah, well, after we went through your show, Sam and I were talking, we're like, this is a compliment, these are just two dudes that are talking, and we talk all the time, so why don't we talk to some of these guys and ask some questions and learn, because we're not doing what you guys do, where you do your own episodes, at least not now for sure. What we're trying to do is, we're just two ordinary guys that are going to talk to you, Leonard Ulrich, Rob Skiba, Doug Hamp, and try to ask the questions that we think, everyone would just, want to have asked, and people can listen and learn along with us as we're learning from interviewing all of you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea, great platform.
The other thing I was going to say is the other focus is to get testimonials from others, especially Christians who have been affected by the system. And like you have that interview with Mr. M, who I believe is not a believer, and kind of along that line where you get somebody else's perspective. You're not condoning everything that they're saying because you weren't there. That's their life experience.
Right.
And that's what they're telling you. You're going off somebody's word. But that's kind of the other half of what we're doing, is we've realized that this stuff is so real. And until I saw your film this summer, I guess I didn't really take a lot of things so seriously. And I hate that I didn't, but like just the Satanism, the channeling, stuff like that. I mean, I have a friend, we're going to be interviewing her for our next episode, and she was a member of Wicca, and she was also into Satanism. So
yeah,
stuff like that, like where now I talk to her and I go, I'm really sorry I didn't take that as seriously, unfortunately, until I saw a documentary. You know what I mean?
Right. No, absolutely. And that's normal with our culture. The blinders have sort of been put on, right? Because, entertainment media, and I was watching Harry Potter the other day, it was on TV, and you watch Harry Potter and it's like, oh man, magic and all this stuff is just sort of this fantasy thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying that people are running around at Hogwarts or whatever, and people are on flying brooms and with, sticks, and, they're not shooting fireballs out. I mean, I'm not saying that stuff is happening like literally, but it is really real. And I remember that moment too. And it happens to me every once in a while where it sort of sinks in, you know, kind of hits you over the head. It's like, oh man. And for me, that just makes me want to, you know, go back to the Bible and just say, you know, praise God. Thank you for showing me these things.
Yep.
I'm just going to hold on to you now because this is a little intense for me and I really can't deal with it on my own. So, and I think it's important for us to build the community. So I really encourage you guys to definitely keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and something else I wanted to say in regards, because I wanted to touch a little more on your film Age of Deceit.
Yeah.
One thing that I didn't realize, again, that I didn't necessarily take, again, very seriously, or maybe I just hadn't thought about it in depth as much, is the act of being divinely inspired to write the scripture through God. When you place all these things in your film with channeling and all this stuff, it really connected and it made me understand it more. I don't know if anybody else has said that, but for me, it just really sunk in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're not the first person to actually bring that up. And that's one of those cool things that I had no intention. You know, that's one of those God things that, you know, as I'm making the film, I wasn't like, oh, people will actually understand the gospel better now because I'm showing all these channelers. You know? Like, that's not something that went through my mind. But it's cool how the Lord uses those situations to, you know, bring to light the things that are His, you know?
Yeah.
And that's cool. I'm really glad to hear that because there was a point in time where I was making the film where I'm like, am I showing too much like negative stuff here? Like, am I actually like just, you know, showing negative, evil channeling stuff just to show it? Or is this really something that needs to be shown? And I was really in prayer about it. And I even asked Russ Dizdar at Branson, I was like, hey, you know, I'm quoting theosophists. I'm, you know, doing all this stuff. Is that something that you think I'm okay with doing? And his reaction was interesting because he said, if I made a film, I wouldn't necessarily show the symbols, but that's just me. And he said, you know, he quotes people all the time on his show on The Ragged Edge and stuff. But he's like, that's between you and God. You should just go to prayer with it. And I was like, all right. So I started praying about it and I really, a scripture hit me and it was Ephesians 5:11. And it says, have nothing to do with the things of darkness, but rather expose them. And it really hit me like, oh, I can't expose something that I don't know is there, right? Like you can't like show the negative or the evil in something unless you show it. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to go forward with it. And I went ahead and put a lot of those things in there. But that's really cool to hear, man. That's something that, it's one of those reciprocal, it's hard to say, things that it works out. It's a Lord thing. I think that, a residual effect of putting something like that together that actually glorifies God in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Gonzo. I was actually going to ask you to go through what you just explained. I don't know if you remember, you get a lot of emails, but a couple months back I emailed you and I asked you about having all of that material, especially the channelings in there. Because when I watched it and my wife watched it, it really bothered us. Unlike you and Sam, I was raised in a traditional Christian Baptist home and I went to church every week. And when I saw, you know, they're channeling spirits, you know, I know what that is, and that's demonic. And why is he showing this? You know, aren't we like inviting things in? And your explanation of what you just said, Ephesians 5:11, really helped to settle that in my heart and my mind as, okay, you know what, I can show the Somners. Okay, I'm not promoting evil, I'm not promoting Satanism, we're exposing it, which is what we're supposed to be doing, like you said. Anyway, yeah, it was super helpful for me. So thank you for answering me and for explaining that here.
Yeah, no problem. And I know that it's not for everyone. You know, I don't think everyone out there is supposed to just, you know, sit there and show these things and say, oh, it's evil and point to it. I think there's a way to do it, but you know, just in my situation and where I came from and the opportunity that was in front of me, I felt like it was in prayer. I felt that it was okay to move forward with that. So, but I appreciate you saying that. I do remember that email. I can't find it right now, but I do remember you asking that question. I think I actually quoted Ephesians 5:11.
You did.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good.
Again, Gons, it goes back to, I think what you're doing with your documentary, again, you're kind of teaching. And when you're teaching, you have to show examples.
Right.
Yep.
So there's a difference between teaching, again, and then just pointing things out to point things out. I
Right.
mean, there's a reason. There's a end goal of education there, educating in the spirit.